Good evening, and welcome to Louisville Late Night. This evening I'm at the Kentucky State Capitol, where we're about to have a hearing on the Gatewood Galbraith medical marijuana bill. And I have with me David Yunt, who is a cancer survivor and a patient of Doctor
Jeffery Bumpous at the University of Louisville Brown Cancer Center.
And what does Dr. Bumpous have to say about marijuana in the treatment of cancer patients?
Dr. Bumpous needs and we need medical marijuana. He believes that it can save lives, and he believes it's a very effective treatment.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
With us, medical professor from the Louisville area. I just want to make a brief statement about the medical aspect of this and the medical support for it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just reflect. I have questions standing, so I'll let you go ahead and testify, and then I'll ask my questions.
So if you'll-
Yes, I would like to say briefly, I'm a psychiatrist and an anesthesiologist from Louisville, Kentucky. You can get in touch with me anytime, and I have seen thousands of patients throughout my career in medicine, which has been wonderful. I've never ever encountered a problem in anesthesia with anything related to marijuana, ever. I believe that what Dr. Gupta said, that the medical establishment, along with the politicians and the people of the United States, have been systematically and terribly misled for 70 years. And furthermore, I personally am involved in a lawsuit against the DEA to change things at the federal level to make it easier for states to do what you all are talking about doing, bringing medical marijuana to the patients of Kentucky and to stop criminalizing them. I'm available at any time. Anybody wants to get in touch with me. I've studied this issue for 18 years. It's documented on time cable, Warner time cable television. Check it out. Any questions related to it, I'm glad to answer. One thing that Senator Bowen said, I just want to mention about the gateway. The way the gateway thing works, it's prescription drugs that lead to heroin. People go from hydrocodone to oxycodone, and then heroin is like half price of oxycodone. And that's where the switch occurs. Another big problem is that the distributors of marijuana, it's criminalized. It's thrown in with heroin. That is an absolute farce. That's why I'm suing the DEA. It's a farce. It's a lie. And who are the distributors? They're young kids. So the young kids are selling marijuana, but along with the marijuana, they're selling heroin, cocaine. And so they switch people over. That's the way that our system doesn't work. It's dysfunctional. I could go on and on and on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few. Representative Adams talked about delivery method. Why do we need to be smoking marijuana for medical purposes? When
There's no purpose with vaporizers. With vaporizers, there is no smoke. The whole cardiovascular issue is a non-issue.
Okay, now wait a minute.
Again, Representative, again, I've smoked for 42 years, and my lungs are in perfect condition.
Okay, I'm not. Let me be clear. Kentucky has a major abuse problem, and as we talk about control by the federal government, keep in mind that the greatest control the federal government has over our Commonwealth is because we have so many citizens addicted and dependent on government to survive, to eat, to get their health care, take care of their kids. That's got to stop if we're going to progress as a state. That's number one. Now, I think it is an open question about where the medical research is. Plain and simple. Okay?
It's not an open question.
It is. Now,
It is not. 96% of the research is against marijuana.
Hey,
Wait a minute, hold on.
This is my time to ask the questions. I let you speak. In fact, I deferred to you and allowed you to speak first.
Thank you.
The fact of the matter is that peer-reviewed, I'm not talking about feelings, I'm talking about evidence-based clinical practice, medicine. The peer-reviewed journal articles are not conclusive. I think the AMA has recognized that there's further studies that need to be done. And Kentucky cannot afford to get out in front and continue its addiction. We simply cannot have it. And you can roll your eyes, but I'll tell you, I was the Inspector General, and I saw the addiction firsthand. I saw the abuse of our welfare system that's supposed to be for the most needy and the most dependent, and yet we have people in Kentucky who claim disability, collect dollars from the federal government, and fake their illnesses and injuries. And when I read articles saying that medical marijuana is good for anxiety, I'll tell you right now, that tells me one thing: it's open to abuse. And until I'm assured where the clinical evidence is, this is not going to have my support. Show me the clinical evidence, and then I'll consider it, because I'll consider anything that's evidence-based. But we haven't heard anything from our medical board about where they stand on this and how they feel about it. We haven't heard anything from our state police, from our Attorney General's office, and they have got to be part of the discussion.
Absolutely.
And before, again, I want to make it clear, let's look at the studies. Let's look at the clinical evidence. But I will not support anything that is going to increase Kentucky's dependence on drugs. Period.
It's not a drug, it's playing in.
If people in the audience could hold it down, we got a member here who is asking a question, presenting his position, and that's our process, how we do it. And I'll defend this man for being able to do that. And so hold it down. If we don't, we'll clear the room out. So.
But what we heard a lot in the testimony was these studies that show it might, or it may, or it could, until those are clinically proven. And look, I'll just tell you, I'm not going to go back and forth about the research with you, but you say studies that say there's no addictive component. Columbia University says there absolutely is, and that it's increased in the past 10 years almost 500%, especially in adolescents. When I hear that kind of information, and when I do not see peer-reviewed medical journal articles, and I'm talking about incredible, recognized medical journals, that say that this is safe and effective, and say that we can have a delivery method that lessens the risk of abuse, then all we're doing is setting up Kentucky for more dependence on the federal government. Call it whatever you want to call it, that's what we'll be doing. And we cannot do that any longer. We absolutely cannot do it. We must be smarter in our decisions, and we must be clinically based and evidence-based in our decisions. So that's the starting point. Get the clinical information. I'm not anyway going to vote for anything that puts the cart before the horse. Thank you.
That's making the assumption that the studies that are out there are looking at the whole picture, of the whole, both what is negative and positive concerning marijuana. Like Sanjay Gupta said, only 94% of the research that the U.S. has done it's all oriented toward the negative effects. Only 6%, just a little bitty tiny bit, is considered. I mean, and so what you're saying is until the science is done, this is part of the great lie. The great lie is that, we need science to prove something that's common sense. The science is not going to happen. It hasn't happened for the last 30 years because the government condemns it time and time and time again.
Again, one thing Kentucky has not been good at, that we must get good at very quickly, is making evidence-based decisions. And you might not like the science, or you might disagree with the science. I've read science on both sides of it. The fact of the matter is, we need to start making evidence-based decisions, because we can afford no more mistakes. We have made too many in this state for too long. And I understand everybody's issue with, we don't want to follow the federal law, and we think we should have the power to institute our own law. Again, our dependence on the federal government comes from our deep addictive issues and our lack of a strong education system that creates that dependence on government. And again, members are going to vote different ways. My vote won't come until I'm assured that it can be delivered safely, effectively, and that the medical evidence stands behind it. We're not going to open up the floodgates as we've done on other issues in this state. I'm just not going to stand there and allow it.
The medical benefits that I brought forward to you guys were stated in the patent that is owned by the government. It's 6630507, which is right there in front of you, and it actually states that it's useful in the treatment of Alzheimer's, dementia, stroke, ischemic attack, AIDS, autoimmune diseases. It's a neuroprotectant, which would help a patient like me with multiple sclerosis. I have nerve issues, I have muscle pain, I have conduction issues throughout the nerves, throughout my body, and it helps relax that. It's been proven. That's one of the things that's most studied, multiple sclerosis has been. If you look up the science that's been done on it since the 70s, the proof is there. The thing is that it has not been brought forward to the general public. The studies done through NIDA, which is the National Institute of Drug Abuse, have actually only been funded for studies against the use of medical marijuana. I believe only the most recent study was brought forward in 2007 for the use of medical marijuana. So there has not been that much, and that is due to the funding for the program only, funding negative studies.
And I know
I'm going to ask the members to hold their questions down a little bit on this here, because we're going to...
Okay.
Well, I think I've made my points clear, and we could talk all night if you wanted to, and maybe we should, but I think I've made my points clear. The medical evidence has to be there. And I'm not talking about these very compelling stories that we've heard, because you and I both know how this works, okay? Those compelling stories will then translate into abuse all across the state. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. I've seen it. I've seen it with opioids, and we'll see it here. We've got to be smart. And just because you put something in your patent doesn't mean that you have the medical evidence to back it up. Let's see, for example, if the medical evidence backs it up. But when I see, it can help this and this and this and this, give me the medical evidence on each one of those points, and then if we're going to have a law, I would suggest that the prescription only be appropriate for those specific medical conditions where there is objective, peer-reviewed evidence to support it that has been tested clinically. Kentucky's not going to be the guinea pig on this.
Okay. I'd like to bring forward one more thing. I apologize. I'd like to request a committee meeting at the beginning of the new session so that we can discuss these issues.
I ask you all, let's keep this here. You asked a question, answer the question. You're up in very next one. Daryl, are you back there? Oh, there he is. You got a question?
Yes, thank you. I stepped out for a minute.
Please leave, because, there's opinions thrown out here, and let's talk about the facts.
Okay, and I don't know if this was addressed when I stepped out. We were talking about medical marijuana. Do doctors prescribe it? I'm intrigued by the term medical marijuana, and I'm not sure doctors prescribe it and are recommended. It's not medicine you can get from a pharmacy. You get it out of these things. And I guess the question is, why do we use the term? Example, I might, if I'm out, smoke a joint and be relieved of my headache. I don't know if that makes it good for me in terms of medical marijuana. So my question is, if you call it medical marijuana, do doctors prescribe it, or do doctors recommend it?
Doctors do recommend it. I talked, I believe, while you were out about the word prescription and how that is a federally regulated system, that we can't allow medical marijuana prescriptions. What it does require, these laws envision a system in which we create a narrow exception to our marijuana laws for seriously ill patients when their doctors certify that they have a qualifying condition and could benefit from medical marijuana. So yes and no, it's much like a prescription. We simply can't use the word prescription to describe it legally.
That's one question I have.
I have a statement there, please.
John, you got a question? John wants to introduce some people that take about half of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce some constituents of mine here today. And by the time their day is over, Mr. Chairman, they will have driven 250 miles to get here and back today. And they have got a grandson that has got a medical condition that they think that he could be helped by medical marijuana or some form.
That are buying it on the street, they're getting marijuana that's mixed with angel dust, with ground glass, all kinds of harmful chemicals. And I mean, that alone is it's a medical atrocity.
Yeah.
Well, we've heard enough testimony, I think, today. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Are we going to talk about any other items on the agenda, or did you call another?